So somewhere indigenous knowledge system, which has, I think, which has, of course, ideas, has to be implemented for upliftment of the people.
Thank you for the talk. Very valuable. My question is how, I mean, we all have to think about this, is how do we bring about change? Like, what is it that is accumulating, what are the institutions and the conditions that bring this accumulation together, and how do we then, as people, actually do the reverse? Because, for example, the village, every time I go to my village, I can see that everything is siphoned off from the village. It goes into the cities or, institutions that are built. So nothing's going back into the village, which is affirming their richness and their culture and what goes with that. So what are the mechanisms that we need to find? What is the newness that we need to achieve to make that reverse? And I think, we are an old culture, so we can, we've been, thinking people, so we really need to address where we're at and how we're going to change. And could you sort of elaborate what your thoughts are on how do we bring change? Maybe it's not revolution, but we've got to start somewhere, something to actually see a physical change for humanity.
You had a question again?
Yeah. So one thing is, it's kind of related to what Mr. Kumar over here said, like what you basically have to do, like you said, okay, the globalization has negative effects, but how about like some positive possibilities as far as globalization goes? How about like globalization of labor movements, for example? Is that a possibility? Is that a possibility? The other deal is, when people are when you're basically saying, that globalization is the cause of all of these issues, I mean, there are like some,
Don't put your words in my mouth.
Okay, let me just be frank. Like, for example, this gentleman over here said that,
I'm really afraid because these questions which I never imagined actually, and you're putting, you are making me more afraid of that. Please defend it. Yeah, please.
Sure. So the thing is, the statement is that, there is like trillions of rupees which have been put up inside the Indian infrastructure development at the cost of a lot of this population. But the thing is, there are these politicians who have been working, who are known as being Dalit politicians. For example, Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav, who himself claims that, like in one of his speeches on the nuclear arms deal, he basically made a claim that, the way food is basically going to get produced inside the country is through infrastructure. And anytime there is any need for any infrastructure development talks, we'll have somebody like this lady who basically goes and like protests, because the dam is getting built and stuff like that. So as far as this main issue that that there is no need for an infrastructure, or that the local population is getting messed up because of infrastructure developments, etc., there has to be certain kind of a balance. The main issue that has to be addressed is that all the benefits are going towards some corporations, that is, whole of India is getting controlled by Ambanis or Tatas, and that is even not what actual capitalism, the people who basically speak for capitalism, that is also not what they are basically talking about. What they are basically talking about is that nobody really controls the market to begin with. There won't be one corporation controlling the market. But what is happening as far as India goes, or just this general globalization mantra that is really happening, is that you're having this mixture of corporations and politicians. And that is something that is really getting exported from America, and that is getting exported to the rest of the world.
So you are answering the question. You have said it actually.
There was another question there.
So this is probably a pretty dumb question, so please bear with me. What is globalization? Because the reason I'm asking is, Wikipedia says it's a, I'll quote from here, increasing global relationships of culture, people and economic activity. I somehow think that today globalization is seen as economic activity, not anything else. And that probably is a little kind of skewed real view of globalization. But that's my personal opinion again. Is capitalism the problem or is globalization the problem? So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm part of this capitalist society. So in asking the question, I got a skewed view already. But the second thing I wanted to point out is, we just had a discussion about sustainability. And I couldn't help notice that we have styrofoam cups and bottled water in this room. I mean, paper cups probably would have been a little better because it's probably a little more inconvenient to get real cups, but styrofoam cups, yeah, I couldn't help noticing. So.
Thank you.
We become so accustomed to our language that we become even violent in that. When my good friend Gyan was telling yesterday, we have white papers and blacklisted. So yeah, definitely, this is all lifestyle. But to begin with, I think there's a profound question that how should begin. And I think, it's not a very difficult question, but it may be really philosophical sometimes. But, a little bit of life which I have lived and a little bit of what I have read, to quote Ambedkar himself, he gives two examples how the nations began. And this was France and Japan, how they began. And of course, the France society was of course at its lowest ebb when the French Revolution ushered. And all the three groups, the nobles, the clergy, and the commoners, they sat together and they tried that we will share. We the people. That was the slogan which they gave, equality, liberty and fraternity. They began. Similarly, I think Japan, when it was actually passing through revolution, the samurai, the eta, the commoners, they all sat together and they said that, look, we give our rights to king, now king should decide. The landowners, the commoners, the people who were very landlords, they all sat together. But what has happened in Indian society after revolution? We have to see that. We gave ourselves a democratic constitution and we said, okay, there will be dispersal of economy, power, sharing of, economic, political, social, judicial power. But what has happened? You take bureaucracy, you take judicial, you take university, polity, industry. How people have monopolized it. As somebody was talking about, one class, one group. University, you take actually how this whole process of monopolization has taken place. I can say that, okay, people from the other side, Muslims, women, Dalits, Adivasis, you can't find even one. All male-dominated universities, professors sit there on upper strata, male-dominated society. And then you see the curriculum. Even curriculum has not been democratized. So if that vision of fraternity, and of course women will say sisterority as well. So if the fraternity and sisterority is missing, and we are not ready to share with others, excluded, neglected, I do not see any hope that we can begin. And therefore, some sociologists, Professor T.K. Umar and others, said that India is not a nation. It is conglomeration of many nations. And each nation has its own language, it has own culture. They are not ready to Anchi Mumbai. You North Indians go away. South Indians first they were dragging, now North Indians should go away. This is the way we began. And that too in economic capital of India. Why this hatred starts emerging? What happened in Gujarat with the people? What happens in Lakshmanpur Bate or Sundur or Hajana or Mehrana or Kumer? Why this every interval, 5 and 10 we want to forget, but every time there is this carnage which emerges. Somewhere down the line, I think that sharedness of fraternities is still not there. People want to monopolize. People want to monopolize economic, political, social, educational, every type of power. And in the name of people, they start ruling. I think somewhere down the line, unless and until these institutions of governance, these institutions of production, these institutions of education are really shared by people, I do not find any hope that we will begin. We will end up again and again in monopolization. That is what my take is.
So the sharing is what you're saying.
Sharing is more
Yes.
important than monopolization. Access to these institutions should be made more possible for the people, for every section of society. I think that is, for me, is very, very important.
But you did say that laws exist, but there's still no access also.
No,
That's contradiction also.
yeah, that is where actually you can make laws. But I'm saying that laws, that's why nation are not, nation is an idea. Philosophically, it's an idea. But sociologically, it is conglomeration of many groups. And it emerges only when most of the groups get a say in the institutions. Otherwise, a nation will not usher.
His question on globalization. Just a minute, his question on globalization, definition of.
Yeah, as a sociologist, it's very difficult. I treat globalization as a process, and as a process which has multi-dimensions. It has economic, political, social, educational, cultural, and of course you can see industry and economy. It cannot be only one way of fast movement. You can take your money, but you will not be able to take that attitude of Indians which we have. You can take your MNCs, but it's still in HR who governs and how they govern. And actually even in your you can say laptops, you will find in computers, in offices. Go to offices, you'll say Durga, Ganesh. They are all coming on your screen. All of a sudden, you make an aerodrome, and then you break an aerial. Still today, this is modernization. This is globalization. So I think actually that process is, I am saying that one-way process where you wanted to take. But as cultures, they are not a you can say mute recipient of cultures. There will always be a reaction because they are living, thinking human beings. So they will react, and then when they react, then this tangentialities, the other processes emerge, and that is why we are seeing hybridization, traditionalization, and of course pluralization. So Indian women will like to wear red saris during the marriage, though will like to wear jeans and top, and an Indian males will like to wear sherwanis. They will like to wear suits as well.
You answer.
My question was.
You want a clarification? Quick clarification?
Just like, I think, can you comment on whether this is capitalist driven?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Of course, process of globalization is capital driven.
Yeah.
Definitely, I will not shy from that. It is capital driven. But along with that,
Only capital driven?
no, that's what I'm saying. Along with that, there cannot be monocausality of any process. That I also agree. There are multiple causes for a phenomena to usher. And of course, one process is politics, geopolitics, who governs the world. And that's where actually the process, the onslaught, the vehemence, the, you can say violence, everything is perforate with that.
Thanks.
Did you have a question? Done. Okay. Back there. And if anybody else has a repeat question, we can quickly take that. You want to clarify? Please.
Yeah, about the class war, I think Nepal is an example of how the class war could end up. Eventually, those who were leading the armed revolution in Nepal eventually ended up participating in parliamentary democracy. So this dream about taking up arms and bringing in a revolution and then there will be an utopian nation where everything will be fine is, I think, too distant. So it's important that we start participating in the parliamentary democracy and see what we can achieve through this. For example, in UP government, in last UP government, Mayawati did a lot of things for the poor. There were public land that was distributed to the poor. There were, urbanization schemes, housing schemes. So a lot could be achieved if there is political will, and if these sections, oppressed sections, can capture power, they can actually bring in the changes, the socialist economy that we would want to bring. So a lot of people here, they may feel that the armed revolution is the final solution for everything. But I think it's important to realize, what is achievable and what is, till how long could you just keep on experimenting,
Yeah, I think there may be confusion. Nobody here is of that view that armed revolution will take care of that. Huh? I don't think so, isn't it? But my actually take on class perspective is that, Indian society is so manifested by caste that you have to evolve a parameter that how much caste contributes into the making of a class. That is more important. You are born into a caste and you draw cultural capital of caste, and that is then turned into a class. I do not know how much it remains even at the level of class. But most of the cultural capital, most of the confrontations, they are more on the basis of primordial identities. Whom you will sit, whom will you marry, whom will you eat, who will come in your death anniversary or marriage anniversary. These are all decided not by only class. They are also divided by caste, and caste being the primary function. Even in US, I'm talking about, I have done research at least 5 months now, and I've found who is what, who's relative, and who comes home and where he is called, and which celebration he tries to enter. There are Ravidasi celebrations here, Ravidasi Dalits who came from Punjab. They have their own worshipping temples, Ravidasi Gurdwaras. There are Ambedkarite celebrations which are taking place on 14th of April. Only Dalits participate. I do not find any upper strata there. There are Buddhist celebrations of different hues, and there are Hindu temples where actually certain people can go. Within there is TANA, Tamil Association of Telugu Association, dominated by particular castes. Then other actually, there is another caste. So Kammas and Reddis and Vaishyas, these all have come here also. So caste remains a very, very basic criteria on the basis of which people interact is still.
Yeah, even if you ask for a reference letter, or any Indian professor, those are sitting in US institute, if they are some Indian, like postdoc, like Ph.D. student, first they will see which caste he belongs.
Yeah, you have a question. Thanks. So,
I think just
question here. Okay.
I think most mature observers of Indian culture and economy will not say that class is the only issue. I mean, there is certainly an intersection of class and caste in India as there is of race and class in the United States. So that's just one of the misconceptions that I wanted to clear, that it's not just class, but there's definitely that intersection. The other thing that I had wanted to bring in and I brought in earlier was very sort of astute writers these days in India, like Anand Teltumde, who's one of the great Dalit intellectuals of India, talks about the mainstream identity-based movements where they have created this illusion that Dalits can also become capitalists and Dalits can also have industries and make money. And he has shown very nicely in many of his articles that the number of Dalit capitalists in India are very few and far between. And again, this is goes with what you've been saying all along, that globalization has actually made Dalits even poorer. So that's the other point that I was trying to bring right from the start. And the third point is that not all class-based Marxist movements in India are all about, armed struggle, and which is what you said just now in response to one of the gentleman's comment about Nepal. So that's one point that I wanted to make, that not everybody who is working in class-based struggles in India are saying, let's go and shoot the hell out of the landlords in Bihar or in Andhra Pradesh. Even the Kudankulam struggle in Tamil Nadu right now, there are people of different faiths, different castes who are getting together to challenge the Indian state. So that was my comment.
Just and I think you have set the ball in right perspective right now. Anand Dubna, I don't know whether he's great or not. That's a different thing. But we always believe, that capitalism cannot be of different types for Dalits and actually for upper strata or for others. Capitalism knows only one language, and that is monopolism. So capitalism will end up in monopolistic tendencies, and in that context, when Dalit capitalists emerge, they will like that other Dalit should go away. Yeah. They will not like saying that you come, oh, you also come. No, they will not. They will also say that. Yeah. That I think is a far-gone conclusion, and that was a ploy on the part of the government how to scuttle the identity movement. Digvijay Singh has been leading this movement on behalf of the Dalits. And they have been actually writing that yes, we can have Dicky, Dalit Chambers of Commerce, Dicky. So it's very nice way to say that, oh, you remain in Dicky, don't come to Ficky. Yeah. It's a simple thing actually, that's what, and Dalit, these fools, they have not understood that, look, this is not for us. Yeah. It is for them because they want actually reservations in private sector. That's what they were demanding. And they have got Dicky now. So it's very clear that, capitalism is not going to share. But as far as the Marxist political parties are concerned in India, I'm afraid to say, and Atul Kohli has written that long back, the share which they have given in their political party and political organization, in the court of ministers, where is that sharing of the power? West Bengal considered to be 24% of scheduled caste in West Bengal, and yet we do not see even 1% of them actually being represented in. They will definitely garner the vote. People will get elected from the Dalit constituencies. But when it comes to sharing of the power in the cabinet, in the ministership, nobody gets it. Even in the central, you can say, body, they are not there. And I think that's why actually Atul Kohli wrote that Congress was even better. They were giving at least 2% reservation, and they have reduced that also in there. So that is, I think, we have to see that how the left over the years has tried to engage with the exclusion issues. And it is no coincidence that they have been wiped out, at least in northern world, where these identity politics are making inroads. So I think identity politics in that sense has been more successful than the class struggle.
We have some, maybe few last questions, so we'll take one. And then
no, I'm ready. That's not a problem.
I saw last hands, so there are more hands. Please stay. Please. Yeah, 3 people.
Yeah.
Me, right? Please, no exclusions.
Okay.
Let's ask questions.
Yeah.
Comments we can have.
Yes. A quick comment.
I will be asking a question. Yeah. But before that, I think a little bit of background. If
you can practice it.
Okay, so first I'll come to question. I don't want to. Okay.
I will listen.
So when you talked about the 6 pay, after 6 pay commission, you were able to, now you are able to purchase laptops. So my direct question about the government increase in salaries. The government increases the salaries, and that exerts unnecessary pressure on the ever-expanding disparity, even the private sectors. What is your take on that? How is there a restraint that the government has to observe when it comes to salary? Manmohan Singh didn't actually could anticipate this as a problem, and neither any other economist that what I have read of. But in 2008, Manmohan Singh asked the private sectors to control their salaries, and he was told that it's our business, you don't have to interfere. So, what is your take on that, as a head of state? If you want to contain disparity, is this something, a very crucial development that has to begin in India? And the background which I was talking about, my question stems from, because it stems from a reason. In India, there is a particular trend that has been observed. The mixture of politicians and corporates. Now, the turnover or the rotation of money within themselves, it by giving the people, the salaried class, money so that they can spend, and that in turn comes to politicians again, because they are the corporates now. So give them money, just blast money, pour money onto their hands, and in turn just make them or entice them to purchase more and more. In what are we doing? We're giving away this money again back to them. So this is the trend.
The salary increase is a tight circle.
Exactly, that is what the politicians are deliberately doing this. So my question to Professor was regarding that. What do you think about it?
Just
my question is sort of, I'm involved with the group of people in India, and after a lot of discussions, we have tried to put together a program called Community Control of Natural Resources. But there we have a problem, which was a discussion we were having. Like, you know Gandhi's view of village and Ambedkar's Indian cattle, right? The two diametrically views of village. So this community control of natural resources, when we talk about it, unless we deal with the caste question, women's question, and minority questions, we cannot really do it. And for example, in my village, there are only 3 Hindu families. So if we were to implement that community control of natural resources, the village could, mostly Jats, they could decide that these Pandits don't need anything. Right? Or in another village, they could decide, that there's low caste and Muslims and women don't have any, don't deserve anything. And so you have, unless there is a social awakening which guarantees the fundamental rights of everyone, irrespective of caste, creed, color, or gender. This sharing that you're talking about, even the, like we cannot even move even iota in that direction. Because these problems, and so that discussion, none of the Indian political movements I see, either in NGOs or in political arts, that discussion is not really taking place. Why do you think that we as a people are really shying away from this discussion of affirmation of rights of individuals, collectives, and general interest of society?
I just sort of again bring that issue of it's like putting the cart in front of the horse. When somebody talks about violence, armed revolution, the point is to have your issues and you move towards them. So in that, I think you'll find your tools of how you're going to move forward. So if you
can I request silence, please?
Like for example, if you're talking about your rights and sharing, why say it's going to be non-violent or violent? Why not begin with the issue and what's going to be the events in that? Because that will bring forward whatever's in front of you, and then you're going to have to, as a people and as a movement, in all those aspects, deal with whatever comes forward. So I think this thing of saying non-revolution or revolution I think it avoids the real issue. If you put forward, these are our demands, these are the issues we want to work with, then you don't start with peace or revolution. You begin with, these are the these are the things that we really need to work towards, and within that you will find your tools of how to do it. So this is, I know that this is always put forward in this way, because it's right from the beginning, we've had this problem, and I think, we've got to be conscious not to take our thoughts in that direction, but the thoughts in actually what do we need to do?
No, I think actually the whole issue was settled. How do we have to begin? This was settled during the Constituent Assembly debate, and that's why we took so many days. 2 years, 11 months, and 18 days. These many days we debated. What will be our fundamental rights? What will be our directive principles of state policy? Which will be going in where and what? I think we had a very, very dovetailed discussion where different ideologies, different hues, principal states, principalities, everybody demonstrated and they came together and we agreed upon. Until 60s we wanted to carry on, but somewhere down the line, I think 70s, 80s, 90s, when the renouncer kings started leaving and the what we call the small-time leaders started emerging.
But I can't quite agree with that, because I think you have to look at the fundamental thing. What is this constitution? You have this constitution, where does it come from?
They came from the people. We the people gave ourselves a constitution.
If you start to look at the actual contextual things in the constitution, so much of it is British.
I don't think so. It is British. It was British till when it was in their constitution. Do you have actually British written constitution?
For example, you take...
No, that is where actually I think we have to see that, because it is basically a book which has enshrined and which led ourselves in such a manner, which was debated and discussed, and it still remains British. If some people were practicing some good thing, it does not mean that it remained to them.
But I think our fundamental problems fundamental problems come from that.
No, fundamental problem comes because of our nature society. We were feudals and we remain feudal. We don't want to become democratic.
No, but I think you can't just leave it in that way.
Okay, that's way, but actually that's the discussion I think these people began with, and that's where Ambedkar point blankly explained that people are blaming that we have taken this thing from there and this thing from there. What is the harm that we take good things from there? You are taking globalization, modernization today, and even then actually people say that we are Indians. We can remain Indians by taking other things also. And that's where I think somebody was asking that we have taken, not even one thing in our drawing room today is made of jise kehna chahiye is in indigenous system evolution. Our toilets to our mirrors, which were there, it came from outside. Nothing is Indian today, even our slippers. Only the air which we breathe in India.
They're all Chinese.
even our gods today are Chinese.
You had a question?
Yeah. Very disappointed with our constitution. In fact, a lot of the things that Ambedkar wanted to be introduced into the constitution was not introduced.
Of course,
so
I agree.
This constitution is really only a piece of paper. Nothing ever gets implemented because it was meant to be that way. And that's what even Dr. Ambedkar himself once said, that he would rather burn the constitution.
No, but he said that our constitution is as good as people are. He also said that. And he said that a constitution will be good if people are good to implement, and a good constitution will be bad if people are bad and not implementing it. So I think implementation part is more important than the piece of paper. And we have actually a saying in Hindi, if we really respect, the stone becomes God. And actually, otherwise it remains a stone. So we have to respect, I think. We have just forgotten to respect our constitution itself.
I think we have to use it for our benefit, which is what a lot of the lawyers and the civil liberties people do in India, but as such the constitution is there only to protect the landed property.
It is our constitution which has seen 60 years of functioning of democracy. Those countries which emerge with us, they have seen dictatorship 20 times. At least we have survived with our own constitution. Those who were actually once upon a time telling that we cannot survive, we have survived 63 years. Czechoslovakia to Russia have gone. They have fragmented. Pakistan has got fragmented. Bangladesh is seen actually dictatorship. So many. But we have seen, revolutions have ushered in Iraq, Iran and where not. We can see transference of power is smoothly even today. Except for 475-76, when Indira Gandhi was trying to centralize, we never had this problem when actually people refused to leave power. The democracy with the people, I think, is much more responsible, and I stand by that. A believer in democracy. I stand by that.
You had a question and then just pause.
Sure.
Yeah.
So
quick, please.
Yeah, sure. The deal is, the reason that people went against, like at least the modern, like India, for example, adopted this capitalization policies, was that the claim that was made was basically that socialism is bad because a planned market cannot basically, a planned market is never going to work. But the deal is, if you're going to look at the best economies today, you're looking at Germany and you're looking at China, which are basically the best economies, they essentially practice a form of socialism which is called market socialism, where everything is owned by the government and the various parts of the government basically compete with each other and like a private sector. So in essence, you're getting best of both worlds. The question is, why is something like that not implemented in India? Why is all the transfer of power essentially going to the corporations? Why are you not following the Chinese or this way?
How can I explain One thing I can say, when Chinese revolution ushered, they buried feudalism very deep. They buried casteism, the differences, very deep. That's what actually he is explaining. We could not do that. We will not look that, but we blame our different things, our institutions. But we will not look our own personal institutions which we have nourished and we have been nourishing.
No, this comes into perspective because a lot of our Dalit capitalists are coming up, saying...
Come on, give me a data. Where are the capitalists? How many you know them?
I know there are not.
Not even one.
Yeah,
not even one.
Very minuscule.
Your question.
I just want to make one point because set the record straight. You said we made our constitution. There were 298 members of Constituent Assembly. 264 of them were high caste men of property, nominated by the British. There was no universal suffrage with which this Constituent Assembly was created. This constitution has never been ratified by the people of India. To the point it was not even available until 80s in the regional languages. So to say that we created this constitution is actually hogwash, number one. Second, all these nasty things that you are saying have been happening to us on the one hand, and then you saying that we have this great democracy. There is something wrong with this picture. And we really need to confront it. That this is how, what's happening in India, this is how democracy actually works. All right, in this country, 1790, when the constitution came into being, there were 360,000 blacks who were denied right to vote, 290,000 men white. Out of that, 125,000 did not have property, they could not vote. 30 to 80 million native Indians were. The genocide was committed between 1780 and 1804. So these democracies, we cannot be something proud of. These democracies have inbuilt genocides in them. And I am flabbergasted. On the one hand, you make such a great presentation, and then you start singing songs of this democracy. which is genocidal in its nature, is built into it. So we have to think of an alternative which affirms the rights of all and not just start with this democracy.
Constitution as an emergent
Well, you have your own views to take, but
But these are facts.
No, these are not facts. You do not say that there were 2 lakh people who witnessed Constitution of India. 2 lakh people witnessed Constitution of India.
No, so
there were 7,000.
I witnessed all kinds.
No. People visited and they had 7,000. They had 7,000 of actually amendments.
So what?
7,000 amendments were moved.
Population of 400 million people, 298 people get together. And they say, this is our constitution.
You had.
What are you talking about?
Okay, I think we should take it.
No. I.
Do you want to take it?
Yeah, of course. I think let there be clarity of people actually when people talk about which other system we had.
That is not the point.
No, that is the point.
No, that is
you have to begin. You have to begin somewhere, and you are making a beginning, and that was the most best available institution which we had.
Why was it? Who decided that was the best available system?
Now, who can decide actually which dish I will have?
More than a few hundred.
What?
They all had to be in one room to talk. It couldn't be 10,000 people right
Why not? Why not? No, why not?
I think one of our basic ground rules was, we'll take it forward.
Okay.
Do people have other questions? Questions.
That's what the democracy allows, Otherwise, I would have shot a bullet.
Don't do that.
That's all. Do you have a question?
It's neither here nor there. You make comments like this.
I'm not saying that.
How does it?
Neither here nor. I believe. No. That's what actually. I think now you are not democratic enough.
No, I'm saying
you are not democratic
we
enough.
have to advance our discussion and not take this democracy as an article of faith.
I believe that only hope which the suppressed and excluded in a feudal society had was democracy, and therefore I stand. I'm not saying that it is really functioning perfect. No, not at all. I did not make a claim. But of course that gave the starting point to a feudal caste-ridden communal society. That's where we began, and I think you should appreciate where we were beginning. Where we were beginning, and in nation's history, 60 years is not an age to be counted. You have democracies of 200, 500 years old democracies, 400 years old democracies, and you have 60 years old democracies, and you are comparing the two situations. How can it be?
No, I'm not comparing two. I'm saying the essence of this democracy.
Essence of the democracy is the only way to live in this world.
So you are saying.
This is not a democracy. What we have
No, it's not a question of democracy.
Well, whatever.
Democracy for 1% of the population.
That's
what the occupation.
I can also argue the same case that even 1% matters. In dictatorship, even 1% did not matter. Only one person who was selling arms and missiles started selling pizza one day.
100 business houses in India have about $300 billion assets, which
Of course.
is 1/4 of our
Yeah.
GDP, and that is a democracy.
That is, I will say that even then, people are basically able to change their governments, and they are ready to lead a life which actually even here you can abrogate your rights today. This surveillance society, at least we do not have that surveillance. We are not under surveillance.
I am a Dalit, so I believe in democracy. Before 1947, definitely there was no scope of any Dalit of coming to this.
Well, I think every nation has a.
We should not make these general statements like this, like before 1940. Like we don't even have that.
Even US had civil.
When you can.
Even US had civil rights and 60s and 70s.
I think we can have this discussion, but I just want to know if anybody has questions, specific questions. You have a question, please, and we'll end it. So, yeah, please.
Sir, I have a question on reservation.
Yes.
I'm not for or against or anything, just want to understand, has it really helped the people? I mean, it has helped to some extent, but now, do we still need reservations? Is it needed? Because where I'm coming from is, let's say Lokpal committee, Lalu Prasad was so happy that he got, in the committee of selection committee, he got reservation for 2 people. He was going on saying that, oh, because of my efforts, they were reserved. Now, is it something which a common man, would it help?
No, I think, you have to begin that when we enshrined equality for all, and we knew that equality as an ontological reality, as a slogan, will not work. So we went on enshrined equality of opportunity also. But we knew that this is a hierarchical society. And equality of opportunity and equality will not work. We will also have to give equality of condition. And equality of condition was nothing but making people, at least at different planes, who were there actually higher or lower, they can come out of same plane. And that was equality of condition, and that was nothing but reservation. So, why these people were given reservation? And I came to actually 4 aspects that why you have to consider this reservation. Because they were historically, for generations, thousands and thousands of years, exclusion, long historicity, cumulative exclusion, that's what they were suffering. And of course, out of that, there was collective identity on the basis of which they were suffering exclusion. Now, because of these collective reasons, they were supposed to be given certain basic amenities. And this was these conditions that, look, okay, you will be also considered and given representation. So, a reservation, they did not ask. It was because actually Mr. Gandhi, who went on to fast on to death, this reservation came into being. What Ambedkar was asking was representation. That you give us representation. Each one of us should get representation into the institutions of education, governance, as well as economy and all that. So the process went on, and then these people started asking for representation, but it did not come. So said, okay, at least this much of population which they have, they will be given representation or reservation. So three types of reservation emerged: education, then political, and bureaucracy. Article 335, 332 and 330. Article 330 and 332 were supposed to give reservations in politics, which was there for only 10 years. This was the case. 330 and 332 were only meant for 10 years. But it did not end there. And because of certain specific ends, people have been actually, extending. Without any movement. Dalits do not have any movement that you extend political reservation. No, they don't say that. But it is extended. Amendments after amendments. And it is past 60 years has passed. But Article 335, on the basis of which there was a reservation in services, this started getting implemented. Until 80s, half, you can say only 2 to 3%. Even after 60 years of reservation, the percentage of reservation has not been fulfilled. Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D. And what is the quantum of this reservation? That we have to see. Now, there are 1 crore and 96 lakhs of jobs in India. You can see Indian Labour Commission report. 1 crore and 96 lakhs of jobs. Total job. A, B, C, D, central, state, public sector, everything clubbed together. And out of that, Dalits, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes have a population of 25%, 24.5%. 16 and 8.5. I am roughly taking 25%. Now this 25%, if you see, you go and convert it, Dalits would have got 45 lakhs of job out of this 1 crore and 96 lakhs of job. I am roughly talking about. Now till today, 35 lakhs job have been fulfilled. 10 lakhs jobs are still lying vacant, and they have been gradually and socially, gradually they are being actually eliminated because of process of globalization. Now I want to ask that if 25 crore people get 35 lakhs of job, how much benefit they will draw? Now at the most, if you take household, 5 people are there and 50 lakh people have benefited, 2 crore and 50 lakh people might have benefited. Now, the question which I'm raising here is that government has advertised much more. It has tom-tomted much more, vandalized much more, rather than giving it really effectively. And that's created animosity. That has created a bad weather for all of us. So that in reality, reservation only benefits to those who have come up at certain level, not for everyone. And that is not also a blanket check, blank check. What people say, given the other criteria of the efficiency alive, claims of Dalits will be taken into consideration. And that's why earlier candidates were not available, later on they are not suitable.
Yes, not comfortable. University of Delhi, which is premier institution of India, they reserve one post in Department of Zoology in 1991. They reserve one post for assistant professor. Still that post is empty, whether people become faculty in MIT or Harvard from Dalit community, but they will not find a suitable candidate for assistant professor for
So the point I'm trying to argue, reservation.
Rajve.
Yeah.
So the point I was trying to argue was that, reservation is a very fraction, very, it has benefited to a very, very small, tiny fraction of the whole 25 crore people. But it has been highlighted. Now my question is, how do these 24